Sup y'all, it's your boy Karis, and today I'm bringing you the definitive guide for Unholy Deathknight in the War Within Season 1. Now to get it off, there are several different builds that I've come up with Saylayn and Riders of the Apocalypse. Now, this is kind of my favorite one because you're getting a ton of death coils, there's disease, you have a lot of different things that are doing a lot of damage. Of course, this build is apocalypseless. I know there's a lot of people that like apocalypse. I think it depends on what you're running. I think it makes your sustain damage, self-sustain, and everything else very, very high. And that's kind of what I prefer on an Unholy DK, and doing as much cleave damage as I can, depending on what the comp is. This is kind of the spec that I would run into melee cleaves, caster cleaves, stuff like that, or MPGs, because there's a lot of healing with this spec, especially with Vampiric Strike. It's only 2% of your max health, but you're also getting 2% leech, and you have 3% leech on the DK tree. Now, with enchants, I think you can get that up to 7 to 8% leech, which doesn't sound like a lot of leech, but when you consider that everything that you're doing as a DK is, you also have Plaguebringer, you have a lot of other things, and with all that disease spreading and all of your damage from Defile, your AoE with Scourge Strike, Vampiric Strike is really high. When you're running Defile, you basically have almost 100% uptime with Defile. Defile is actually doing a big part of your damage, especially with a lot of cleave. It's essentially like having, I believe with this spec and with Saylayn, it's like having, you get a Blood Beast, you're getting a lot of damage with this spec, and you're also extending your Dark Transformation with Death Coil, so that's really good. Okay, so with this spec, I'm just gonna start it off and just start doing damage. I'm actually really enjoying this spec. So here's how you would go off. You start off, you're gonna pop your A-bomb. Gonna get 6 on this target. Going to use Vile Contagion to spread everything off. Get a second Defile. You've got the 8% increase in dam. I got a Blood Beast right there. Another Defile. And you're basically just able to spam so much damage. Another Vampiric Strike. This is literally your whole burst rotation. We've got burst skin in about 10 seconds. We'll refresh our dots, and then once we get our pet out, we will get our... we're going to get 6 stacks. We're going to maximize our stacks. We're not going to pop that yet. We're going to use Violet Contagion. Use Dark Transform. Now that we have Saylayn again, we need to dump Runic Power. Just endless damage with this build. We've got Burst again. We just lost our Dark Transformation, just went down, but that's okay. We'll use our Burst again in about 15 seconds with Violet Contagion again. Get our 6 stacks, Vile Contagion, A-Bomb, all our cooldowns. And as long as we have targets that are stacking, they're getting cleaved to death. We've just... you can see Vampiric Strike is able to hit for about 500k. It's doing a ton of damage. Blood is life. I believe this is a little bit high on the target dummies here, but this is not. Oh, this might be too, but you can start to see where your damage starts to get out of control with this build rather quickly. The thing that I really like about Saylayn versus Riders of the Apocalypse is there's two things with each of these specs. You do get some damage reduction with Saylayn. Let's see. Your Death Coil gets buffed with it. Let's see if I can remember where it's at. You also have this talent here. Icebound Fortitude reduces all damage you take by an additional 20% based on your missing health. This could be a really good one if you're struggling to survive. That's another thing I like about Saylayn. Your leech is increased by 2% if you go with this talent. While Lichborn is active, the leech of this effect is increased by 100% and also affects 4 allies within 12 yards. And you also have a reduction on... Oh, let's see. Oh, no, that's... Never mind. That's the other one. That's Death Ring. I was getting confused with talents here. But essentially, you're buffing your disease damage with Vampiric Strike. So when your Vampiric Strike ends, your gift to the Sandleaf ends, you're also maintaining your duration of your disease on the target while it's ticking. And then you deal 100% of your virulent plague damage in that time frame. So I've had to, I think with Unholy, I've had it hit for about 400 or 500k with all my damage, with Festermite being up. It's just so much damage right now with this spec that it's just pumping. And when Sudden Doom is consumed, you gain 6% strength for 5 seconds. Well, we're already attacking faster because we have Icy Talents. I feel like Unholy is always getting Icy Talents, or rather Sudden Doom, and then getting the proc from Death Coil, where it pops 3 wounds with your Doom Burst, and it slows them by 90%. It's absurdly annoying, slow, like you can't move. It's basically a root at that point. Frenzied Bloodthirst just increases all your damage with Death Coil and Death Strike by 4%. Stacks up twice, which feels really good. And Vampiric Strike and Scourge Strike cause your target to take 1% increased damage up to 5% for 15 seconds. Vampiric Strike affects from Insight Terror at 400% effectiveness. This is making your single target damage really, really high, but then it's also buffing your AoE damage, which feels really, really good. I find with this build in Battlegrounds, I've been able to hit 300, 400, 500 million damage depending on the battleground and what the other enemy team is and how geared my team is versus their team, if they're able to stay in the fight, if we're able to stay in the fight. Just kind of what's going on. But as far as Arena, I'm finding myself actually doing the most damage, the most AoE damage, and having a huge amount of burst. So if I have 2 targets that are hitting me and I pop this, I'm also healing for a lot because of Vampiric Touch. And if I'm weaving in Death Strikes in there, I'm finding myself not having to press wall unless I'm getting CC'd and then I'm getting chunked. It is also another really good thing. And you had the 2% extra release, so you have 5 plus Blood Plague healing you, plus all your other things that are keeping you alive, plus Blood Draw, where it makes your Death Coil just that much better, reduces the damage you take by 10%, and your Death Strike cost is reduced by 10% for 8 seconds. And it just makes your damage a little bit better with Frenzied Bloodthirst, which is rather nice. I'm going to show you some other builds. So this is the Rider Apocalypse build that I've kind of come up with. Basically how this is going to work, everything revolves around your Raise A-Bomb. It's a really good spell. It attacks the target, does a really good amount of damage, gives everything disease. I love Vile Contagion just because it synergizes really well with your Apocalypse, and it always lines up with A-Bomb, and it just lines up with everything that you're already doing. So it's a really strong spell, and it can be affected by 7 nearby enemies, so you can actually kill pets with this. And at the same time, if they're stacking, Bursting Swords is also doing a really big part of your damage. And we're still running Plague Bringers, so we still have all the disease. But now, Scourge Strike shatters Trollbane's Chains of Ice when hit, dealing X amount of damage. I've seen this hit for probably about 500k. So it does make your damage a lot more crazy. And let's see, which one is it? This one here. Well, you have 2 or more active horsemen aiding you. Your runic power spending ability, you deal 20% increased damage. So it makes your Death Coils hit insanely hard. So when you're actually bursting, let's say we're playing with a priest. So basically how this will start is same procedure as Saylayn. You don't have as much leech, but it doesn't really matter because you have that much more burst, and you're also taking 20% less damage. So my mistake. I'm going to get all my runes up. Let's say I want that many. I'm going to spread everything, and now I'm bursting. I'm gripping everybody in. And now we're just popping off. I find Death Riders of the Apocalypse has a lot more AoE damage just because of how it affects all your different modifiers from your horsemen. So White Mane increases, basically gives you another dot. Chains of Ice from Trollbane. You gain strength from Nazgrim, and Mogren casts Death and Decay at his location that follows his position. So now you actually have an AoE ability and everything else. So spread our dots here. We're going to pop this. Just basically, you're just doing endless amounts of damage as much as you can. And we're just, you can start to see where Death Coil is going to be a big part of your damage. We're going to go back to... Okay, so that's kind of what I'm finding out is Death Coil with this build is actually really good. I don't like Fury of the Horsemen so much. There's one build I kind of like it where you're going to use Pet, which feels really good because you are spending so much runic power and you're getting so much. You're not having to use Festering Strike as much. Guys, your A-Bomb and your Pet's Claw is also applying Festering Wounds. So we're going to go into, this is kind of more of the pet build. I've kind of debated on a few different little things with this where you don't have Festermite, but this is more of like a disease build. You're doing disease damage. Your pets are going to be doing damage. This is more like what I've been seeing with the tier set. I believe you're getting haste and you're also increasing the damage you deal with your pets. And decomp actually is a big part of your damage, so same thing as before, but instead of just popping Vile Contagion to spread our wounds, we just go straight off, and it's super straightforward, and then we're just spamming everything that we have. We don't really need to put D&D on the ground. We can if someone's stacking nearby. Pop our wounds, big dam. Never cap out on runic power. We're taking 20% less damage with Riders of the Apocalypse. And we want to just be spamming Death Coil and reapplying our wounds as much as we possibly can. I like to keep runic my wounds really high just in case I get a Death Coil proc and it hits and takes, you know, 3 wounds off instantly. So I'm not losing value from my Doom Burst. And this is basically the whole thing right here. And I forgot I don't have Apocalypse. I didn't put Apocalypse on my bar with this one. But you can start to see where getting all your pets out and everything else is really valuable. So there's, okay, we got a bunch of pets out. We're in Plaguebringer. And this is pretty much all single target damage. We're holding about 1 million DPS. With our pets being so strong, there is not a moment where I don't feel like I have at least one Magnus of the Dead out. Which is actually kind of funny. So we got more grain. Now we're doing an AoE damage. So I'll go ahead and reset this because now we have all our cooldowns again, except for A-Bomb Limb. Let's see here. Reset this data. Now we're gonna assume we have 0 on that. And then now we're gonna start bursting. Max out our Festering Wounds because we got a bunch to get on there. I don't like to cap my runic power. I like to spend it. So Trollbane is doing a big part of your damage with this build as well. Your Death Coils are hitting really hard. Just everything with this build is hitting hard. Your Undeath dot is hitting extremely hard along with all your other disease. And you have 4 pets, essentially 6 pets, essentially, plus all your Magnus of the Dead. This I've debated running a pet build with this because I believe that the horsemen are still modified with Unholy Aura. It could be pretty funny to see what that triggers. Of course, this does decomposition extends your Magnus of the Dead, but I'm not really sure yet. I mean, this is more of a disease build. You're not doing as much single target, and your every 50 ring power you spend extends the duration of the horseman's aid in combat by 1 second up to 5. This is good, and it's I mean, you do get the full effect even with low haste values. That's not the problem. I just prefer dealing more damage with Death Coil just because, well, you know, it's more damage. Like, just the damage profile, it just feels different. But at the end of the day, having that 5 extra seconds with this build on your pets is actually big. And now we're going to get into the ranged Saylayn build. So, this build, there's a lot more impact from your disease damage at range. You don't have as much range damage or damage from your disease, but per global you have a lot more damage. So let's say I have 2 melee, I'm fighting in a 2v2. I'm going to pop all my damage on this target. I'm going to pop APOC. My egg bomb is on him. And now, like, now I can hit him from afar. If I'm a caster, if it's a caster, I can do this. Hit him from a million yards away while still healing myself. And still just doing this. Just being, I need to not get hit by him. I need to kite. And I'm still able to just deal a pile of my damage. And I still have wounds on him for a long time because of my A-bomb. And my pet applies... your pet will apply that, and you get this thing that comes out, and it actually deals a lot of your damage as well when it explodes. So just think of it like, even with your festering wounds, all of your damage is modified off that. It's not as much burst damage, but it's still enough damage to where you can kite, and you can pillar hump and stand in a really gay spot where casters aren't able to cast on you. Some casters are not really going to work that great on. I would say like things like S-Priest, it could probably work on fairly decently into a dampen matched. But when you're spending every global on your Clawing Shadow, Vampiric Strike, when you upgrade it with your Vile or Dark Transformation, and you're able to just kind of sit in between the pillar, and it's, what is it, 30-yard range, I believe? Should say in the thing here, in the spell book. Yep, 30-yard range. So, as far as PvP talents, basically the same. Necrotic Wounds lock in, Doom Burst lock in. Dark Sim can have some play. I don't really care for Dark Bargain. Bloodforward Armor and Spell Warden. Really good. Null Magic. Osmosis, really good into melees. And casters, just everything about it's really good. And Warriors, Bloodforged Armor is going to give you a lot of sustain. Strangulate, good if you're running in with a 3s comp that is stun heavy like a Demon Hunter or a Windwalker Monk. You know, you grip their whole team in blind, start your burst. They trinket the Windwalker stun or the DH stun or the Warrior stun or whatever, and then you follow up with a silence on that. You could just force the kill in the opener every game. So that's just one thing, just depending on the spec that you're doing. These are the 4 specs that I've come up with that have kind of their different niches and how they feel. They do damage differently, but at the end of the day, one has more self-sustain. Another one has a better wall. It's basically like a super defensive stance without the damage reduction, which feels really good. But after that, it's kind of... It's only 5%. It's where Saylayn gives you a lot more healing through the course of the game, which feels really good. So it's kind of like a trade-off, healing or damage reduction. And Saylayn does have the opportunity to summon those pets, and with Unholy, since you are able to extend your Dark Transform and you do get that dark transform, and you are getting that haste. It actually makes Saylayn feel faster versus Riders of the Apocalypse, which does feel really good. It's 7%, so you're just spamming Vampiric Strike, and you're just getting more haste, so that means more runes, more runic power. It's just the same thing. It just makes your rotation so much more faster, and it heals you at the same time. It's only 2%, but you do get that 2% extra leech on top of the 3, plus with enchants, you'd probably be sitting 8%, 9% leech. And over the course of the game, that's a lot more healing, especially with all your disease that's coming out. And you're already dealing a pile of damage, so let's say even, let's just round it up to 10%, just to make the math easy. You do 1,000,000 damage, you heal for 100,000. It's just, and that's not even including Vampiric healing you, your Rune of the Fallen Crusader healing you, Death Strike, Death Coil on your Lichborn, which is, and then you get 100% effect on that as well. So that's one funny thing. So I'm going to pop Lichborn here. See how much leech I have. I have 13% leech with this. 17% in PvP. That is a ton of leech with Saylayn. That's why I'm liking it, because it just gives you a ton of healing. So you pop that 17, let's just say with enchants, that's 20%. So 20% of the damage you're dealing is healing you. And you're taking, 12% less damage? 15% less damage with Lichborn. So you have 2 walls with this, with Saylayn. Even though you do technically have that wall because 15% less damage, you're just healing like a Resto Druid with this. And you're dealing a ton of damage at the same time. So you're not spamming Death Strike. You're just like, I'm going to pump damage, and I'm going to completely mitigate this go with an AMS Lichborn or something like that. And just completely heal through it with your healer and CC, and you can save your Icebound Fortitude. So for 2 goes, even 3 goes, depending on the comp, you're unkillable. That's the funny thing about Saylayn, where you can get that 20% leech, that 15% wall, and just do a ton of healing in that go, and you don't have to spam Death Strike on yourself. You can for some extra healing, but at the same time, it's almost worth just doing the damage and just absolutely slaughtering the other team. But now that I've brought you 4 builds, I'm going to put them down in the description, and y'all have a good one, and enjoy your Unholy Deathknight in Season 1, and I hope y'all push rating. Y'all have a good one. See you later.